David Milch and the creators of that show, Deadwood, they would fascinating going out there and working on that show because they would have literally 50, 60, 70 extras there in wardrobe all day long. You would see wonderful character actors that you'd never see in a lot of places. And David Milch would write these beautiful monologues for people that would never get a chance a lot of times. You know, being character actors, a lot of us come in and go, yeah, they went that way. You know, and the cut, okay, good, have lunch, you know. But David would write these beautiful speeches for so many wonderful actors in that show. It was a privilege.
Welcome to A Word on Westerns. Today we're going to meet William Russ. William was in the last Western that Burt Lancaster made, Cattle, Annie Little Britches. Give him a big hand.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you.
Glad you could join us today.
A privilege.
I've been a fan for a long time, and I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Burt Lancaster. He was an icon when you made that movie. What was it like?
Well, you know, the impression I remember, because I was so young at the time, I was 27, and I'd just come out of New York doing a play, and Lamont Johnson had seen it and flew me out here and saw that I wasn't afraid of the horse. And I remember we had been there, as Rupert had mentioned, for about a week. And I remember sitting on a horse on the set somewhere, and they said, oh, and here's Burt. And I was so in awe and shock, and it was so silly. I didn't know what to do. I kind of leaned down from my horse and said, well, hello, Mr. Lancaster. You know, and I think about it now, and I think, my God, why didn't you get off the horse? Why didn't you, you know, give the man his due? And all I could say was that I was just so in shock and awe and young and stupid.
Well, you had some great scenes with him in there. You guys were robbing banks. That must have been fun.
It was a dream come true. I mean, I grew up with Westerns, and I was so grateful to even be in one. And as Rupert has mentioned, it was such a great gang of guys, and Diane and Amanda were so alive and fresh, and Burt was such a professional and so giving that it was a joy. It was easy. It wasn't work, as I'm sure most people would say. It wasn't work.
And then you were down in Mexico shooting that.
Mm-hmm.
You had ridden before?
I'd grown up jumping on horses and things like that. And as soon as I got a call saying, we'd like you to come out to California and we're going to put you on a horse and do a little test, I kind of went, oh my God. And I ran over, I literally living on West 78th Street, and I ran over to 98th Street, and I said, I need to get on a horse in New York. And the only people I knew that rode were policemen. And there was a stable there, 4 stories up in a brownstone. And we went up, and the guy grabbed the horse and put me on it. And I said, I got to go do this test. I said, okay. And we literally rode down the ramp onto 98th Street, walked down, you know, with all the traffic. I'd driven cabs in New York, so I knew, what are you, crazy? And we went into the park and just sort of rode around. I'm going, oh my God, I'm riding a horse in New York City. And went back, and somehow I flew out here and stayed sober enough and got on a horse out at Tony Upper's ranch and was able to ride it. They put us in a costume and literally rode up and jumped off it and said, you know, now you're getting in trouble now. And they said, cut. And I went, oh, well, hope that's good enough. And fortunately, it was.
Well, having Tony Epper there must have been a big assist.
Well, the Eppers were famous, and many stories that I would like to tell, but I really can't.
Well, share one with us.
Well, no, not that one. I can't. It involves ammunition and alcohol, then I really can't go.
Well, I heard there was a lot of that on the set, though.
Oh, it was, look, we were all young. It was, you know, people forget that where we stayed actually was the El Presidente. And actually it was an old prison in Durango, and it was converted into a hotel, but it was 4-sided. And they had rooms that faced inward and rooms that faced outward. And of course, I sat in a room faced inward, and I could see everything that was going on. And again, we're in Mexico, and we worked hard, and we're usually up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we wore our costumes. I think Kenny and I were talking about. There were 3 productions going on that I remember. One was a European Western, one was a Border Patrol story with Telly Savalas. But what was fascinating was you'd come in at the end of the day, and everyone wore their costumes from the hotel to the set. So you'd be sitting in the bar with Border Patrol agents, and we're in our Catalani breeches, and there are people speaking French and Czechoslovakian German, and their cowboy and Indian outfits, Native American outfits. And it was just unbelievable, the surreality of it.
Well, what a great location. And the costumes were fabulous, too.
Oh, Rita Riggs was, she was a genius. And, we wore, and a lot of it, there weren't many costume changes because the movie takes place very quickly. But yeah, we wore those, and, I had pieces of those costumes for many, many years.
Did you get to pick out your own hat?
I don't remember, no, but I remember mine very well because I was from Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, and so I was actually an Easterner. So I actually had kind of a bowler hat, and we were all very spiffy.
The writing with Burt, too. He did most of his own writing as well. Mm-hmm. And Buck Taylor?
Oh, well, Buck and Kenny were like, they're the real deal.
It's like going to school being in that movie.
Yeah, with them and Redmond Gleason and Scott Glenn and John. We all wrote a lot, some better than others.
What was Scott like? That was his early film, too.
Well, Scott had just come from like 9 months on Apocalypse Now, and we just had a great time. Scott was, we would hang out all the time. Scott and Redmond Gleason and Kenny and Buck Taylor and I were like inseparable. And what was fascinating was then there was Rod Steiger's gang chasing us. And it was interesting, we never actually we'd eat on opposite sides of the restaurant most of the time. We were very tribal in our own way, Steve Ford and Rod and those guys, but it was just a sheer joy.
Mm-hmm. You also played Wild Bill Hickok in Legend.
Oh my God, that's right, I did.
And that's a show that was only on for 1 season, but just a fun show where a pulp writer, decides to become the character that he has written about and fool people.
Oh yeah, I remember very well. And Wild Bill Hickok, I still remember being a 10-year-old reading his biography, his biography, and remembering the story so well, how he was shot, because it was the first time he sat with his back to the door. Mm-hmm. And I never forgot that. And even as I grew up as an adult, I would go into my local hangouts, and I would never sit with my back to the door.
Keith Carradine's the same way.
Yeah.
He played him in Deadwood.
A wonderful actor.
Oh, terrific.
Sweet guy, too.
Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. You did one of those, too. Yeah. Another show that big numbers, high ratings when it first premiered, and then somehow it didn't last. But gosh, are those fun?
Oh, look, we're actors. Anytime you can go put on somebody else's clothes. I mean, we're all kind of non-tribal. I mean, actors, a lot of us, I'm a Navy brat, so I can move. I mean, one thing I love is trying different tribes, whether it's baseball or hang gliding or movies or whatever, and putting on the different wardrobe and living in a different life for a little bit.
So I know you did a Young Riders.
Oh, yeah.
With a bunch of young up-and-comers, too, Josh Brolin.
Well, my wife was on that show, Clare Wren. And
you played her husband in that episode.
Yeah, actually I did. Yeah, there was a thing, and I got to tell you, those people earn their money out there, Josh, and all those kids who were kids at the time. And actually, it's interesting, my wife grew up on horses. She is actually the best rider of all of them.
Well, in the opening credits, where they have it, it's in slow motion, and they're all like bouncing like this. It's so funny.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to do a shot like that. But yeah, it was beautiful out there in Mesquite, out in Arizona. And
so what was it like working with your wife then, too?
Oh, always a joy. Yeah. She's a wonderful, beautiful actress, and still is.
Mm-hmm. Now, that was a nice Western because it shot on location other than just on a sound stage back here.
Oh, yeah. Those guys were outside, 12, 14, 15 hours a day. Beautiful place in Mesquite.
Mm-hmm. You did a Deadwood episode as well, which was shot at Melody Ranch.
Yeah.
And boy, that muddy streets, talk about great costumes.
Oh, well, David Milch and the creators of that show, Deadwood, they would, fascinating going out there and working on that show, because they would have literally 50, 60, 70 extras there in wardrobe all day long. And, and also what was wonderful about that show is that you would see wonderful character actors that you'd never see in a lot of places. And David Milch would write these beautiful monologues for people that would never get a chance a lot of times. Being character actors, a lot of us come in and go, yeah, they went that way, and the cut, okay, good, have lunch, but David would write these beautiful speeches for so many wonderful actors in that show. It was a privilege.
Well, Milch, I understand, would write overnight and then hand out new sides.
Oh, David would write there in the set. I did a series with him, actually, that was about the Washington Post, actually, where I played a newspaper reporter. And David was famous for coming in and saying, no, and write a speech for you. And he used to drive people on NYPD crazy. Some people didn't like that. They
need a little more time.
I know, but I grew up, I always did new plays as an actor, and I was used to that, and I could get it quick and come up with an idea. So it was always a thrill to work with him.
Well, you said you loved Westerns growing up. What were some of your favorites?
Anyone that was on TV that night.
Me too.
And I still remember going to watching the epic, oh my goodness, How the West Was Won. I still remember going to the movie theater and being, my jaw dropping with the scenes and the theatricality.
And Cinerama with the Buffalo Stampede coming down at you. Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. There was a program in the mid-'80s that just changed everything. It was like, let's do an MTV cop show, and it turned out to be Miami Vice. In the first season, there was an episode directed by Rob Cohen, who's gone on to do some big features, that starred William Russ, and it was called Evan. That was like a feature film. Everything about it worked. The music, your relationship with Don Johnson's Crockett character. What do you remember about working on Miami Vice?
I remember being very excited. I remember it was a job. Someone just called me up and said, oh, they want you to do this show. And my agent at the time, it hadn't aired. It hadn't aired yet. And my agent said, I don't know if I want you to leave town now. It's pilot. I said, no, this is a great show apparently, and everyone's really talking about it. And so I actually showed up and went to work, and it was a wonderful experience. And Don, was just starting. The show hadn't even broken on yet, I don't think. And it was a great experience. And Rob Cohen was very bright, right on it. And I came, and it was something I kind of knew, and everyone was very giving, and no one knew. And I actually ended up watching the episode and actually doing a mini-series called Long Hot Summer with Don at the time. And we literally watched the show sitting in a hotel in Thibodaux.
Because it was being broadcast while you were shooting Long Hot Summer.
Exactly. And I was wowed. Again, we go as actors for the work. We go in for the day, and hopefully there's something good for lunch. And everything else, I don't worry about it. People like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. Unfortunately, that kind of hit a nerve.
Well, and you two together were just terrific.
Well, it's a mutual piece of work that we do.
Should mention, I guess, Boy Meets World, which you played the father. That series was on for 8 or 9 years.
Oh, it was a joy.
Yeah.
It was a joy. And it was a great bunch of people, and the kids, I still see them once in a while, and the creator was so giving, and it was an amazing experience.
This seems such a different part for you. How were you cast in that? Do you remember the audition?
I think I ended up, I turned down the pilot at the time. I just I didn't feel comfortable in the genre, and they actually shot it with someone else, a really wonderful actor I know, but Michael Jacobs, for some reason, I'd done a movie about baseball called Pastime, and he had seen that, and he just said, I still want you to do this. And by then things had changed mainly. I'd been out of work for a little while longer. And I said, oh, wow, looks good to me. And I went to work, and I tell you, it changed my life in a lot of ways and gave me so much. And it just goes to show, sometimes it's the experience you're saying, no, that really is the one you should do.
Was that single camera in front of an
No,
audience?
it's 3 cameras, 4 cameras, in front of a live audience. And,
What was the rehearsal like?
well, it was, compared to what we do now, very easy. The kids were in school a lot, so as the adults, it was like, printing money. You just kind of go into work and, I have no fun. And I love live audiences. Bill Daniels almost quit the first time we shot anything because that live audience with the screaming and everything was a little difficult. But it was a joy.
It
was wonderful, and I learned so much that I didn't know. It took me a while to kind of get used to it.
In the rhythm of it and the timing, or what did you learn?
Just how things look on television and how sitcoms are run and how they're shot and how, I don't know if I learned it very well, but, I had a contract, so.
What I like about this, what we're doing now, the conversation, is having the live audience. Because people say, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to come. Can we just do an interview? And I go, I don't want to do talking heads. I like the audience, the feedback. You guys are out there, right? Yeah, see? Yeah. See, so we know how important it is.
Well, that's why I became an actor. I never thought I would do TV or movies, anything. I thought I'd be a theater actor, and of course, theater is with an audience, and that's where I started.
The energy, it makes such a difference.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, Will, or should I call you Russ, as I heard Rupert?
Just don't call me late for lunch, babe. That's
all right. You're not late for lunch. You were right on time, and I sure appreciate you coming.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, guys.
My name is Rob Word, and we love bringing these programs to you. We've got a lot more scheduled coming up. We post a new one every single week, and we want you to subscribe, like, and share. Thanks for watching.